and gentlemen. This is the meeting of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee on Wednesday the 11th September, and we're in the Council Chamber, Town Hall, Leighton Road. The first item on our agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies, Mr Smith?
Councillor Drake.
Thank you. Declarations are of interest. At this point, councillors are asked to make any declarations of disposable, pecuniary and or personal interest that they may have in relation to items on the agenda. Anybody like to make a disclosure?
In the grant, I've got 2 grandchildren that sit on those, but they're not involved in the activities. Okay, so you don't need to do it. Well, just mention it.
Right. Anybody else? No? Thank you. Item C, there is no report or urgent items to bring to your attention at this meeting. Item 4, Smith, any public questions in accordance with Standing Order 22?
I'm received, Chair.
Thank you. Item 5 is you would like to go to pages 1 and 2. You will find the minutes of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee meeting that we held on the 12th of June. Are there any comments on these minutes or queries? No? If not, I'll be pleased to sign this as a true record of the meeting. 11.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We'll now take as item 6 the minutes of meetings which have referred to the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee. The first one is the minutes of the Accounts and Risk Subcommittee, and Councillor Paul.
Right. Go ahead. On track to items 4.6 on page 4. We resolve to recommend to the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee to approve the attached risk management strategy. Shall I do it on at the same time?
Yeah, well, that will be discussed at item 7.9 of this agenda,
So, okay.
as will the next one.
Okay. And also 4.7 health and safety policy.
Yeah, that will be discussed.
This is approved health and safety policy. Is that further on in the agenda? No, it's not, is it?
Back on this, item 7.9.
It's now. Yeah.
Yeah. You also have a copy of the minutes of the Dementia Friendly Town Working Party meeting. Calculated that there are no recommendations to the committee coming from that. Right. Any questions or comments on those minutes? No? Then we'll move on. Okay, item 7 is officers' reports. We'll take first item 7.1, the forward plan and resolution tracker. You will find that on pages 9 to 12. Does anyone have any questions or queries on the forward plan and resolution tracker? No, you're content with those with that schedule of meetings. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 7.2, which you will find on pages 13 to 18 of your agenda. The budgetary control report. We have just been asked to note the report. Before we move on though and note it, I'll first ask for any questions of understanding. Is there anything anyone would like to ask about this report? Any questions? No? Okay, moving on. Any issues with anything which appeared in the report that you would like to raise? Good. Then I will ask you, can I have a show of hands, please, that we will note the report. Thank you. Okay, we are now at item 7.3. The budget, this is on pages 19 to 24. This is our first pass at the budget. and it's there so that we can raise questions, raise issues, which can then be looked at. This budget will of course come back in November, I believe,
Yes.
and if necessary it comes back again
It will come back in January.
in January. So you will be seeing this several times. So, if we go to page 19, does anybody have any questions of understanding about the budget? Anything anybody would like to ask?
Well, I'm not sure, Chair, if it's a question of understanding,
Yeah.
but it's a question. I'm just wondering, 'cause unless I've missed it and been stupid, when we look at 215 talking about possible target increase for the precept from the next financial year, 7 to 9.5%, I'm just wondering, any thoughts on what does that actually translate into, say, on the average council tax bill? How much does that actually translate into in financial terms?
Here we go. 7%. 7% is.
Shall I take it for you, Chair?
Yeah, because you haven't put hedges. I know that it's something like 70. It's 5p a week.
Yeah, I know it's not very much. It's probably not very much, but I was just wondering because it hasn't actually been put into terms of.
If you do it at Landy.
Yes, percent. I know it's in percentage terms, but I'm wondering what that is in actual real monetary terms.
Our current council tax is £72.29. 7% will raise that to £77.35, which is just over £5. Which £77 works out at £1.49 a week, which would be an increase of 10 pence a week. That's on 7%. I can give you 9% if you want that as well.
Does anybody want the 9%?
So in real
No, work that out.
No,
About
it's
12p a week.
Yeah, just about 12. That's
But
all I wanted to
would much
flush.
prefer to think about it as pounds, what actually people can pay.
Yes, I do.
I think it's a way of pushing through
I understand what it means.
Yeah.
So it's how much in pounds a year?
A year, it goes up by £5, £6.
£5 a year.
£5 a year.
Yes. But I think that
It's not
Yeah.
actually a coffee and a cake.
no. But I think people understand when you put it into pounds, when you put it into percentages, people will get all sorts of wild ideas about what it actually means.
Okay.
And in real terms, our budget, that gives us a headroom of about £71,500.
Yeah, Councillor.
I've got a question about the use of capital receipts in reserves. I've noticed that was really helpful. It says that you cannot use capital receipts for repairs and revenue items. Can receipts to go into reserves and to use for the sort of things that we've now got earmarked reserves for, like I think that storage facility, that sort of thing. I just wanted to understand what capital receipts are used for.
Okay, could I, if I could just hold you there, Councillor? We haven't finished the previous item.
Oh.
If we could finish the previous item, please. Does anyone have more questions?
May I just ask one question really for information? Obviously, there are more houses being built in the borough. You've just mentioned that the 7% increase equates to 71,500. I assume there's also another increase because the total tax base will have increased.
The figures I gave you were based on the current council tax base that we know of. We won't know if there's any increase until December. So when we come back into January with the final figures, that would include the new council tax base, which will give us the extra headroom.
So there
that
should
would
be some
generate.
additional headroom there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That is actually, there is a bit of a myth about the amount of housing being built. There were 2 or 3 major sites built, which ticked it up 4 or 5 years ago. On average, there is not a huge number more every year. It's under 100 usually.
Well, I was assuming
Not
well below
huge.
that, new units, yeah, I was assuming the number of new units.
Yeah, the number of new
you know,
units is.
Yeah,
There's no room to build much,
Yeah.
so that's why sites like this, which are the site over here, which is actually very, very small, is made such a big fuss of, because we have such little new development in the south that anything that is developed is remarkable.
So that, anyway, just to clarify that, any increase will be shown up in January or thereabouts. Okay, thank you.
This may be offset because the ward structure is going to change. So we may be losing parts of the town to other,
It won't be within the next year.
but it won't be within the next year. So.
Again, I apologise if this is at the wrong time to
No,
say
no,
it.
let me finish. Is this a question on the precepts?
Not directly, it is on the budget, which is part of it, which is
Okay, well,
precept, so it is a precept.
can we address the questions on the precepts, and then we'll move on to other questions. Everyone will get a chance to ask the questions. Councillor Paul.
Are we saying the figures at this point in time, if they go through, we'd need 7 to 9.5%, or is that just when you say set a target increase, that's obviously for looking at a later date as we go along the financial year, but where do you get 9.5? Is that balanced books?
No.
It doesn't, it's not.
It's just an assumption that we're putting forward based on, we know that inflation's been hitting us year after year.
Okay.
We've had no increase in council tax.
Yeah.
There are new initiatives that we are sort of looking at to do, and we feel that we're going to need that sort of level to fund for those, but also give us a bit of extra for going forward in the future years.
Right. I presume, for example, national insurance increases on the staff costs will have to be covered.
Yeah, that'll all be
And
covered
all
within
national
that,
insurance
yes.
increases,
Yeah. There is also, the settlement has been running at about 2% for some time. We believe it's going to go up to 3%, if not higher. And a lot of external costs are beginning to tick up, which has not happened for the last 5 or 6 years.
Sorry, Jochen, settlement meaning?
The pay increases are done nationally.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Councillor.
Yes, it's a question about, you mentioned there'd be there's a little bit of history, no council tax increase for a while,
No,
for several years you said.
there has been one council tax increase in the last 8 years.
So in those 8 years, at this point in time, what do we plan for as an increase in our precept?
The year we did the increase, we planned for between 7 and 10%. The other years we planned up to 5% and then didn't use it.
I remain confused about this because it's not the way I would ever plan for a budget. I would decide what services we wanted to offer. I would have a discussion about that, obviously with an implication of the cost, and see whether then we would afford them. We seem to be saying we can afford this much, so let's see what things we'll spend the money on. But it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money.
Yeah, well, Councillor, if you wish to have perhaps a session on how public sector finance works, you may wish to schedule a meeting in with Mr Smith. He'd be happy to help.
And you're not able to.
Well, would you like me to explain how
No,
the committee systems work?
No, I don't think so, actually. On the second thoughts, I think that would be something I'd want to happen.
Yeah. This is how it works in the public sector.
Can I ask for clarification on that? Is that in the part of the public sector, that is the way that you set a budget, where you decide how much you'd like the amount to go up for and then work towards it?
But no, we've already agreed what's going to be done next year.
If we've agreed what we're going to do, then we know how much it's going to go up by. So we shouldn't be discussing this. We should already be doing it and implementing it.
Yeah, well, every item of activity has been agreed. At the beginning of the year, before you do it, you take the strategic agreements and the projects which have been agreed, and they're run, and a budget is prepared based on that, and this is all things which have been agreed by council. Officers prepare a budget, and if I'm getting this wrong, tell me. Officers then prepare a budget at the beginning of each financial year based on that. The budget is prepared well in advance. This is for the financial year starting next end of March, April.
Yeah.
So we start talking about it several months in advance. They scope out for the year their assumptions of the ongoing costs, like staff costs, ongoing costs like just sundries, things which are brought in. They build in how much we have agreed in our large contracts, which are ongoing and sometimes last 5 or 7 years. And they have within them escalation clauses which are based on retail price index or some index. So we have to build that into the budget at the start of the budgeting process. We also look at a number of decisions that might have been taken through the year. For example, we may have decided to increase staff, and that would have happened and we would have agreed to do it based at a later date. Yeah, so there may be staff coming in between now and then, which will impact the budget. All of those factors are put together, and this is what Mr. Smith has done in cooperation with the town clerk. He's brought together everything based on the decisions which have already been taken, and based on the existing 5-year strategy. From that, they have produced this budget. So every item of this budget is an item that's already been agreed. So every activity has already been agreed.
Okay, can I stop you then, please? Because the purpose of this meeting is scrutiny of these actions taken by the team.
No.
So what is the purpose of this meeting?
Do the numbers add up, and do they reflect what you think, and is
Okay.
everything being included?
Right, well, I'll ask a question about whether the numbers add up. I can't see from this where the inflation assumptions and other things are mentioned as 3%. I can't see how we get from 3% to 7.5% to 9%. So I, at the moment, don't think the numbers add up, and so I'm asking a question of the professionals as to what are the other things in the budget which will move us from 3%
If I could stop you, staff costs, have gone from, well, if you take that, because you.
Yeah, so Chair, probably the best way that I can explain this is that this is the first look at the budget for next year. So at this point, you're not looking at any detailed figures. So what we do annually at this point, leading into November and through to January to get to the full budget, we start by having a look at the assumptions and the pressures that we know we're going to have. So 5.3 of the report sets out broadly the things that we know we're going to have or that we're expecting to have that are out of our control. We then, alongside that, look at the things that are set out in 5.4. So these are things that are priorities that we know that we're going to have in the next year, but also the other things that may impact upon us that help us to shape the budget. So, for example, under 5.4, the council, as you know, has agreed to look at some additional devolution of assets. At the moment, we're exploring that. We don't have a firm idea exactly what those figures are, but having looked at the initial sums from the district, for example, we've got a ballpark figure of what they look like. There's also other growth items and other service changes that may well come forward. And there's also the new business plan, which is something that you're looking at this evening as well. So that may well have new initiatives that need to be funded. So having looked at all of those things, the 7 to 9.5% is our best estimate at this time as to what we think we're going to need. Now, of course, as we progress through this and as committee and council decide what the priorities are, the budget will then be designed to make sure that we've got the right resources to deliver the budget. So, as the Chair mentioned earlier on, in previous years there's been a target that's set between 0 and 5%. Having gone through the process in October, November, December, it's been found that once we've developed the budget, we actually don't need 5%. And so there hasn't been an increase. So what you could find in this scenario is that you would look, and our assumption is that we're going to need 7.5 to 9.5. In the next couple of months, when it comes back to you, actually what we present to you is actually, we don't need that much, it could be 2%. But what we do with setting the target is giving you our best estimate at this point, based on what we know and what we think is going to happen. It is not a concrete, you are agreeing to a precept of X percent.
Excuse me, you talk through the Chair. If I may say, this is a well-known financial sort of theory. It's the cone of uncertainty. The further you are away from a point, the more uncertain you are, so you put a bigger spread around your figures to reflect that. Council.
I think that was a very helpful explanation. The one thing I'm still missing is the link from what you're saying to that number. Is that you must, like, has anybody done any numbers work to get to this initial?
Councillor, may I say, I can answer that for you. If you look at the front of your report, it says to assist in the speedy and efficient dispatch of business, members requiring further information on items included in the agenda are requested to inquire prior to the meeting. Every time we have new councillors, they do not understand the budgeting process or the financial systems. We encourage them to set up a meeting with the finance manager and have it explained at that meeting.
Councillor, I find this extraordinary, to be honest. I'm now starting to understand some things I heard about before. We go to a meeting, we spend our time, and we're not allowed to discuss or scrutinise any aspects
Ask
of it.
any questions you like.
I am.
Well, we just did.
We are, and we're going to ask them some more.
You're saying you don't understand budgeting?
No,
No,
I am a finance professional, as is Paul. We are both working in finance every day, and I
There's
work.
no need to shout, councillor.
I'm sorry, but this is very
So what is your
frustrating.
question?
Okay, can I ask the question to something that? So, can I ask to? Am I allowed to ask the professional?
I have, if you could, I have indicated to you, you may ask a question.
Okay, I was just wanted to check. Thank you. So, 3% for inflation, and we're aiming at 7.5% to 9%. So we take the middle of that, 8%. So there's 5% extra that you think you need for the other, as you said, the other things that we consider to do, other services. So on a rough estimate, I think that's about £65,000. 5% of 1.3 million. I haven't got the exact things in front of me, but it's about that. So just want to clarify, at the moment, we have committed as a council already, I've been told by the chair, to investigate spending £65,000 more for things like additional officers and times that we talked about. Is that the right sort of figure?
So, Chair, no, I think that's the wrong way around. So, how I would best describe it, so if you looked at the salary increase, so if we're expecting a 3% increase in salary costs, that's around about £21,000 at the moment. So that's £21,000 of your 70,000 potentially. So,
okay, that's just to check that is extra staff or more time for staff.
No, that's current staff structure with a 3% pay increase on the national settlement.
Right. So sorry, my number when I said 5%, which gave me 65,000, was saying you're talking about an increase in precept of an average of 8% between the range, and we've included the 3%. So what you're talking about is the 3%. I'm thinking about that extra 5%.
Can I maybe, because I'm standing back, I might be able to help. There's more than one element here that they're built into the budget. The first is the standard increases that they know about, and those are, I guess, on staff salaries, I guess on national insurance, and they have a number of contracts which they know absolutely how much the increase will be. The second item is things where there's a certain amount of uncertainty about, because it's not the contracts are based on, for example, indices, and we don't know what the index is going to be, because we won't know that probably till the end of the year. And so we're taking a guess on what the index will be, and we're taking a spread guess. Yeah. The third item is building in things which haven't started yet, but which have already been agreed by committees, and those items need extra staff or extra resource in some way or another, and they have to be built into the budget. Yeah, and that could the major item that is that we know about there is, for example, the acquisition of the park, because we know that if we acquire it, we're going to carry out a number of projects, and that will require more project resource within the council, and so the spread between the 7 and 9% reflects that we're going to need some, but we're not quite sure, yeah, how much. And so they're building in something for that, for some extra resource. I think there's another item which is they're not doing unknown unknowns, but they're doing known unknowns, in the sense, now I'm not sure on this if you've done that this year. There's some things you've got a good guess they might be coming up, and so you're building them in, and they may come out later if you know they're not going to be there. Is that right?
Yeah. So, Chair, could I just add
Is that the category?
Yeah, could I just clarify? So 5.3 in the report here sets out the things where we know we're going to have additional pressures. So sitting behind this is figures. So if it's helpful, we can provide those figures to the committee afterwards that completely quantifies that. For example, salaries, we know a 3% increase is around about £21,000 in addition. So if you're looking at a 7% increase that brings an additional £70,000, is that about right?
7%. So you say 5%?
7% brings in an additional around about 71,000. So straight away, 21,000 of that would go within salaries, and so on and so forth. So we can give that breakdown in relation to 5.3. The other point that I would make is that the unknowns, but we know we're working on them, so the additional assets. So the devolution of parks, Rockhampstead, we already know that within district budgets, they're costing around about £50,000. So we know that if they were to come over, and we're working on that as instructed by council, we would have to find that money. So that also goes into that figure around 7 to 9.5%. So it's quantifiable where we would know the numbers, but some of this is our best estimates at this point because we're still exploring things. And the reason why a committee looks at this early is that it gives plenty of time and plenty of scrutiny between now, November's meeting, through to January's meeting before presenting it, and it's this committee's job to present it to council in January.
Chairman, if I understand it, all this meeting is doing is looking at the parameters that might apply to the budget. And the next meeting we actually see detailed numbers, which is entirely sensible.
And that's why we were saying look at the items. It's not really the numbers; they're just giving an indicative look.
Just for Carl, when you present us with that extra information, when you talk about the Rockhampstead acquisition and its extra cost, will that net off the change in the precept? Because as I understand it, there's a division between the St Albans. Forgive me if I get the wrong terms of this. The carve up between because they at the moment look after Rockhampstead Park. I understand that they acquire income for themselves for that, and that will change. That was what we saw in previous documents. So when we get that figure of the amount you said for Rockhampstead, just if you could indicate that it's net of what you estimate the income we will get back from that.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Sure. So just to clarify, the figures on Rockhampstead and devolution, I can't give you accurate figures at this time because all we've got is figures that are from district. What district spend on it may not be what we need to, or indeed what council wishes to spend on it. For example, should you wish to transfer it and maintain it to its current level, you might spend X. However, should you want to transfer it and invest in it, then actually the general budget might need to be higher. So I can only provide you with the figures that districts spend on it, and that doesn't necessarily mean what we would spend on it, because that's the decision for council down the line.
We will not know how much remedial work we have to do or how much we want to invest in it until that has been looked into. And there are also, that has been looked into and then written up and presented to council. The second thing about this is we do not want to put figures into the public domain about this because we will be entering a negotiation, and we'd rather they didn't know.
I just want to understand what you mean by that.
Any transfer of assets between two groups is a negotiation, and when you're in a negotiation,
No, I understand that. Sorry.
one thing you don't do is tell the other side.
No, I do
what you're
understand that.
basically-
I have done some negotiations in my time, so I do understand that. But what I'm saying is you seem to indicate that this information being provided would put it into the public domain. How would that happen?
Well, if you're asking for information to be provided.
I'm sorry, am I a member of the public or I'm a member of the council?
Oh, no. You said you wanted to see the information here. We would not care to put the information here until further down the line.
So you won't allow me to
Oh,
see
you
information?
can see anything.
No, that's what I was asking, but you said that
Any
it's
member
put in the
can
public
see
domain.
any information.
Thank you. So it won't go into the public domain?
If the members have to remember that they have a code of conduct, and one of the things that they have to be very careful of is any information like this would be in blue, which means that they are not allowed to discuss it externally.
And just to be clarified, you're not insinuating that either myself or my colleague would be somebody who'd like to break a code of conduct?
No, not at all.
Thank you. I need
I
to...
thought you may be unaware.
No, I'm not unaware, thank you. I have dealt with confidential agreements as well in my time.
Chair, perhaps it might clarify to remind people that this pack, for example, is in the public domain, it's on the website, therefore there is a good reason not to have added all the supporting information. That's how it would become in the public domain. That's perhaps what was being meant.
I think that's pretty much what I was thinking.
And thank you, that's very helpful, because that explains why I'm asking these questions now, because I haven't got the detail that I might like. I understand why it's not published here, and obviously a misapprehension of mine was that I would come to this meeting and find out the information that I can't be told beforehand.
But Councillor, that is clearly you did not understand why, when you received this pack, at the front of it, it says, please talk to officers if you want any more information in advance of the meeting. That's fine.
There's a suggestion there that we can never learn anything by discussion.
Yeah, I know, but we're not learning, Councillor. You are learning and we are wasting our time.
I'm sorry,
So
I think
it
that's
would be
right.
quite good if you could learn offline. And that goes for any councillor who doesn't understand.
And you would be even-handed about that, in the way you allow people to ask questions and get answers.
Of course, you can see any officer and you can ask any question.
No, I'm talking about you chairing meetings.
Well,
What
I'm
I've seen so far.
allowing all these questions,
Mm.
even when people are becoming inappropriately emotional and personal.
I'd like to ask another question.
Okay, is it about the, can we go back?
It is about the budget.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry if you're also helping me. I apologise if I'm learning a little bit more off you all. But just a final question to allow me to make some decisions is, if we develop this budget, and as I said, it develops and gets more concrete as we move along, and we reach a figure quite late in the process that we want to spend, there's a separate town council decision about whether we will increase the precept for that. When do those two things come together? Because we can't surely fund something we're not going to pay for.
The council meeting, I think it's January, makes the decision on the budget.
Thank you. 27th of January, Chairperson. It says here.
Table paragraph 4.1.
Thank you.
So this is the start of a very long process. And as you mentioned, Councillor, these are the, this is just some of the initial criteria. This will change. It always does. Are there any other questions? Councillor Paul.
Yeah, page 23, 6.5 at the top. In that, is there not a special expenses trade-off from Rough Street Park if we take it over?
Yes.
There is. I hate to say explain it because special expenses is a bit tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, so Chair, just on that one, so if I could deal with hypothetical figures, just bearing in mind the point around confidentiality and there may be a negotiation down the line around transfer of asset, as previously, for example, District have required us to pay for assets and there's been negotiations around. So hypothetically, if, for example, a park like Rothamsted may have at the moment a budget of around about £100,000 to run it, of that, a percentage will be covered under special expense, which essentially means that within the district budget, it's only the people of the area where the asset is that fund it. So roughly that's potentially somewhere around 60%, say, for Rothamsted at the moment. So that special expense, how it's worked in previous devolutions, the special expense where an asset is transferred over, and this isn't just in Harpenden, this is in Wheathampton and all other parishes, is the special expense has come off of the district council bill for that area and then has gone on to the town or parish element. So there is kind of a zero difference to that local resident.
One goes down, one goes up.
Yes. Of course, the point that we're making in the budget here is that only covers a percentage of what the spend is currently being made on that particular asset. So whatever the difference is that isn't covered by special expense is what is need to be found by the body that is now running that asset.
Precept.
Yeah. Which is either through increase of precept or within existing budgets where you don't have the pressures upon the budget that enables you to absorb it.
I've got one more question. Same page 7.1, the capital receipts. on to the third line down, when the funds generated are in excess of £10,000, can't you repeat lump sums to go, or is that a figure for the whole year or individual items?
Individual items.
Individual items, so you get 2 at 9999 twice, you can't put it into FPC.
And Chair, just on that, because Councillor Brigham asked a question earlier on about capital receipts as well. So essentially capital receipts can only be spent on capital items. If there is a capital item that's currently got an earmark reserve to it, capital receipt could be used to spend that, and of course the earmark reserve would become released into.
Thank you.
Okay. Done.
Okay, are there any other questions? No? Okay, we've not been asked to agree anything, we've just been asked to note the report. So can I ask for a show of hands, councillors, that we have noted the report? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Chair, there's
Another one? Okay.
There's a number of
I beg your pardon. On page 19, yeah. Note the budget timetable and process for 2020-2021. Can I have a show of hands? Thank you. Agree the budget and inflation assumptions. Do we agree that? Yeah, thank you. Approve the guidelines for standing committees to review their budgets and any growth items as outlined in paragraph 5.5. Thank you. Approve the level of general reserve as set out at 9.5. Yep. And set the target increase for the preset for 2020-2021 within the percentage band of 79.5%. Thank you. If it's lower, it'd be better. Yeah. Okay, business plan 2020 onwards, which is on page, we're on item 7.4 on page 25 to 30. This is a draft business plan up to 2023. It has an appendix C, the strategic objectives and some of the initiatives which are being considered to fit under those objectives. The detail of projects, etc., are done over time, and each of those projects will come to the relevant committee for discussion and approval, and then be discussed at council, and the council will take the decision on each item. But what this gives you is a direction of travel and some ideas of what might be coming up. So can I ask, are there any, first of all, any questions of understanding? Any issues?
Well,
Councillor?
not exactly issues, but I've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
First one is page 27, item 6 on the section on conserving, improving our parks. Actually, it's item 6, sorry. I mean, I've no objection to that. I'm just sort of slightly wondering what's left that we haven't looked at. I can only think of one thing, but presumably it's just something we're going to keep under review.
There are several items. One of the things the District Council has is play areas. They have there has been a certain level of underinvestment in some of the small play areas in the district. This will give us the opportunity to identify them and look and see whether we want to take them in. Because I know the residents in those areas are quite upset about that. We may also wish to take land which the District Council owns, some of it just sitting there, and use that, have that moved over and use that for social purposes, particularly play areas, actually, in areas which, you know, the small ones for little kids, in areas where there isn't anything. That would have to be handled very carefully, and that we would certainly need, if we moved to do that, we'd certainly need to get the local residents' views and opinions. You could not do that without doing some sort of survey, because it's very emotional putting anything in where people live.
Chairman, one area I noticed wearing my hat as a member of the allotments committee, there seemed to be not dispute, uncertainty, friction in many of the allotments, with allotments and council land adjoining, particularly footpaths, as to who was responsible for hedges, keeping things in order, etc., etc. Is it even feasible to consider taking over footpaths that happen to adjoin and maybe interfere, or it would cause less friction if in fact that footpath is under the control maybe of the allotments of the town rather than the district?
The problem is, I know that specifically there's one footpath which has had ongoing issues for many, many years. There may be, I don't know, but there may be others. In that specific one's case, the footpath is owned by the county council.
Is it county council? Sorry.
Yeah, they'd be. I think reluctant, shall we say. You might find it's harder to get assets from the county council than it's from the district council. But there may be other footpaths that we could look at, and it's a good point. And it's particularly the one I think I know you're talking about, is at Marquis Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been an ongoing issue, and the county doesn't cut the hedge on their side.
Yeah.
And it could give us some advantage if we did that. But I have a feeling the county council, negotiating with the county council is much harder and takes a lot longer. You may, Mr. Cheevers, you may wish to comment on that. They are reluctant to hand over assets.
Yes, at times it can be.
Yeah.
Can I come back to play areas again, which is what's on page 27, develop play areas, improvements at council and sites. I mean, at the moment we've got a split of district council and town council. We're talking about town council sites.
Yes.
Only.
Yes. But we may acquire more.
But another question, are we better placed as town council to get any, you say, funding from, crowdfunding and all that sort of stuff? Are we better placed as town council and the district to get grant monies from anywhere, or is it level playing field, excuse the pun?
We may put more effort in.
Yeah, I think just on that particular point, Chair, it's very difficult for any local authority or local council to get grant funding these days. So it tends to be, have to be either through general budgets, or through capital receipts, or indeed, as we've seen, certainly in St Albans and in Rockhampstead, with the community group just raising funds themselves.
There's no money out there in Sport England or anything like that?
Yeah. The important thing just to add in terms of the play areas and the devolution discussion, if we are successful in delivering the council's aspirations to get hold of Rockhampstead Park and the other green spaces, there won't be any remaining district play areas in the town. So they'd all be owned by the town council anyway.
Sorry, through the chair, what about, I look at you and I'll speak to what about Woodend and Albert Park?
Those two.
So Chair, they were both included. So when council decided to devolve assets, it was Rockhampstead and a number of other open spaces.
Okay, so that's down the line, because we know what Albert Park wants.
Yeah.
Stuff done.
Yeah.
So Chair, our discussions at the moment are with the district aren't just Rockhampstead. It's Rockhampstead, it's Woodend, it's Round Park, it's Oakley Road, and it's Parver Close.
We're trying to take them because it's partly the current council is focused on St Albans areas, particularly the one near the centre. So it would be good to take ownership so that they can be invested in and looked after as they should be.
That's useful learning that going forward, because we need to know how these players are controlled and who does it, and what's the chance of getting improvements. So
also,
it's in the pipeline.
Yeah. Also, if we do it, there's a number of issues which we could address, which is harder at a district council level. I give you one which is coming up. Teenagers are drinking in the play areas on a Friday night, and they're throwing their glass bottles and breaking them. So when parents go in on a Saturday morning, it's littered with glass.
Is that Rossington?
It happened at Oakley Road actually 2 weeks ago. we could manage that better. And the district is kind of remote, and we'd probably be better able to have somebody going round on a Saturday and a Sunday morning and just taking care of that. It's been going on for years. This is just that people generally don't know about it. During the week, somebody goes in the morning and clears them, but at weekends there's nobody going in, and it's a huge danger for children. I think we have it at Marqueting quite a bit.
It's very useful, that quick chat on what's going on, because we need to know as councils on the ground, don't we, what's down the line.
Well, there would be a project, councils would be involved, residents would be involved, because you don't want to put it in without residents input, and then it would go to, it's actually the other committee would manage that. Yeah. Okay, any other questions, Rosemary?
What sort of questions and comments? Sorry,
No, you can.
looking at the development of the Harpenden Sustainable Town, item 12, I'm just wondering if that's the right place for horse riding. I don't quite see most people going to Sainsbury's on a horse, but
I have been, I completely agree, I've been having a running joke about this, because it's actually in LCP4, the County Council Sustainable Transport Strategy.
Is it really?
Yeah, and they are serious about it, and I got told off and told that many people they would actually like to use that facility, and we should be putting hitching wheels in the
right then. Okay, right. So I just put it under
I think we're
use of green spaces. And the other thing I was going to say, it's more as a, just to enhance it, is on the developing and promoting site facilities, infrastructure, water networks, which I quite agree with. I was just going to say, as a comment on this, I think huge numbers of residents have no idea that the entire town is crisscrossed by a huge network of paths that link across the whole town, and I think that's something that could be promoted far better, and within that as well to look at, I know we do inspect the paths, but I think they could be improved and look at that, so I think that's something that's well worth looking at.
One of the things we could consider doing is just starting out with an information booklet on how to get around, because I when I became a councillor, I'd lived in Harpenden for nearly 30 years at that point, and I didn't know that there were paths near me which cut through.
You could walk the whole town using footpaths.
Yeah.
I go cycling, so I know where some of them are.
Yes, you'll know some of them are, and I walk. So,
yeah. And I
Some of them have got these things that you can't get your bike through, or a double buggy for that matter.
Yeah.
And put it on the website.
And put it on the website, but also have handouts for it. But this is more ambitious than that. Now it costs a kilometre of cycling path costs 100,000.
It's more than that. It's about 300,000, I think, is what district officers have recently quoted.
Yeah, because they were quoting it, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, that's high. So any idea of us putting cycling networks in, forget it. But what we could do is work closely. We're going to have to pick up when the local plan is eventually agreed. I think the town council has to pick up and become part of the initial work which is done when they're master planning, because part of master planning they'll be making the decisions on which cycling networks they would put in from those areas to the town centre. So if we could influence that, it may be very helpful, not just for the residents there, but for other residents who wish to see cycle to the train station.
Can I just clarify one thing? The footpaths are all county controlled, aren't they?
Yes,
Which means they do the maintenance.
yes.
They don't really go out too much unless you inspect all the footpaths and make sure they're up to standard before we hit the first.
We do that every year
Do we?
anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
I want the footpath county because I thought some of them were the towns.
I think they're all FP numbers,
Is
aren't
that?
No, Chair. So we do own some footpaths. So there's a curious position where you could be on a public highway that is actually town council owned. So that's correct.
Is that the ones that are across the common?
across the common and around the town.
Oh, yeah.
There's some
Yeah,
anomalies
yeah,
as well around,
yeah.
around the whole of the
So
town.
it's a bit of a muddle, but there are quite a few actually that town
Yes,
council
because I
own.
know the one across the centre of town is, and the ones across the common.
You were dismissive about cycle lanes at the cost that they were. I mean, at some point we'd like to investigate that more. I don't know which point it is, but I wouldn't want to be dismissed from every conversation and thinking about the 2.65 million.
I would put it forward as a proposal to the relevant committee, and it will be voted on.
The last committee I was on that discussed said we would have a discussion as a council about it.
The process is that the council, the decision such as this would no doubt go through the other committee, yes?
The business plan, yes.
Yes, and if they agreed it would go to council. If they don't agree it doesn't.
Excuse me, but again, it's county council, isn't it, you're talking about?
They're county council, so we can't touch them anyway.
We
Can't touch what?
Footpaths,
Well, no,
Cycle lanes,
cycle
cycle tracks.
Yes.
roads, cycle paths.
We can ask, we can
We can't-
communicate, can't we?
But you can communicate, but they don't belong to us, so we don't
So we
do
can't
anything.
fund them in the area. If we provide the funding, would they provide the management and delivery?
No,
Have
How do you know that?
we ever gone down that route?
we've tried.
Cycle tracks, right? You think
When
what?
did we try to do that?
We talked with them and they don't have the management time. We'd have to fund their management time also. Everything.
It is in here, isn't it? We've got
Which
some,
one?
We should just see some extracts
if
of
we're
that.
devoting
if anything.
sustainable cycling, we need probably make some overtures, is that a word?
I would hope we'd try and do something a bit different from what we've done for decades and decades, and just saying that it's never possible. That's the way we do things. I would agree with you.
If I may say, councillors, everybody gets very excited about the 2.4 million. This is something that proposals will be put forward. For part of it, proposals will be put forward by we will be having an exercise where the community has a chance to put forward their ideas, and we will look at them. But everybody will have the chance to put forward ideas, and there are many ideas on the table.
All I was referencing, we shouldn't dismiss it then if we're going to put forward
Oh, we
ideas.
wouldn't
You said we
dismiss
should just
it.
forget it. I thought it was dismissing.
I didn't say, well, what I said was that 300k per kilometre, it doesn't take you very far.
No, you said forget it.
Yeah, that's what I meant, it doesn't take you very far.
Chair, can I just for clarity, and apologies if this is obvious, so the overarching initiatives that are set out in the business plan, if they're in the business plan, below that is lots of exploratory work, lots of further scrutiny, lots of discussions for committee. So at this point here, by coming on it, you're not necessarily going into detail around what you would and wouldn't do on it.
Yeah.
What it is it sets a priority as to something that we would explore, that we would look at all the different options, and of course bring that to appropriate committees and council for decision.
But yes, again,
As I said, people can suggest initiatives, they will be looked at, they'll go to the council, they go to committees and they will decide. Council.
yes, because obviously, I mean, this is running over several years, so it's obviously going to be a whole load of different initiatives. So this is very much the ideas. I mean, there's a whole load in here that's obviously going to be fleshed out. Looking at cycling, and what I'm going to say some comment on looking at cycling. I mean, yes, it makes absolute sense. We want sustainable transport, but we do have cycling routes. There's an issue on the cost, but there would also then be an issue if we did decide at some point that we would wish actually to put some money into it, and then whether you negotiate with the county to take over. This is just a thought, to take it over, because actually you're then going to run into an issue of double taxation. Which is, I don't know if you've met with some councillors, but it's a normal of local government that you don't run into double taxation. In other words, we do not wish our residents to be paying twice for something, which is fine, but I'm just saying it's something that if we wanted to look at how you would fund improving our cycle paths, that's something that would have to be factored into it.
This is one of the reasons in local government you have a strict delineation of responsibilities and you don't take on someone else's responsibility.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go into that in detail now. Actually, there are ways you can negotiate, you can look at it, but then you need to look at how you then get the funding passed over to you. So all I'm saying is, I think the cycle part, no, not necessarily.
No, you can transfer.
No, you don't have to. There are other ways of doing it. You could do it by looking at you can devolve that too. All I'm saying is I think it's something worth looking at down the road, because if it's something we wish to build into, and it's part of our overarching plan that we wish to be sustainable, there may be ways of looking at things like that, and just add them in and look at them.
Looking down the line a few years ahead, the Bloomfield Road development, when it comes to planning,
that's what we're talking
we'll need to
about.
have cycleways through there, because technically that is deemed to be a sustainable development, you know.
That's exactly what I've said. Both the Bloomfield Road development and the Batford development have already signed up to providing sustainable cycling paths. However, there is a constraint on that. They can only be from the site to the centre. It cannot be used to do it anywhere else. It's for any money associated with those sites must be for the benefit and associated with the residents and with the houses on that site. So they cannot take a pot of money which is then used elsewhere. Yeah, and that's been confirmed by the planning group.
You should know, I mean, I assume, excuse me about the internet, I assume it will come out in 106 money for the silver monies, wouldn't it? For cycle paths through this development.
No, the current plan is that most of those cycle paths will be put in by the developers themselves in working with county.
Yeah. Okay.
It's cheaper for them to build them.
I think we're exhausted that one.
Yeah.
But for now.
Other cycle paths are possible if you own the land. And there's at least 3 which we could put in because we own the land. But what we have to do is first of all look at the cycle network and then do a proper strategic study of where the gaps are.
That'd be good.
And where we have the opportunity from the north and the northeast development to take money from that and start to build a more strategic network around the town. I think, is that helpful?
Yeah.
Any other questions? No? No? Right, the recommendation is to consider it and to agree any changes to put forward to the council meeting on 23rd September. Has anybody, would anybody like to suggest any changes? Or is this sufficiently?
I think it was read very well, Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, Councillor?
I'm sorry, and it's just before we get back, I was going to say, I just know, I mean, this is very much a first draft,
Yes.
and I'm assuming that at some point it will be considerably fleshed out. Or will we just take the elements of it and they'll evolve over a period?
I will give an initial answer and then I'll hand over to the town clerk. The initial answer is that this is going to be top and tailed with a lot of information about the town. Yeah, as always in a business strategy. This is going to go to the other committee and it's going to go to council. As part of that, other things may be added or things may be taken out. We don't know yet. We may want to, somebody may say they want more information around what down one of the points, I go down to another level. They don't know that yet either. So it will change and it will evolve, but it will be bigger.
Yeah, Chair. So the contextual information will be added in around the town council, around the budget, and around what we do as per the current business plan. In terms of it will remain a high-level business plan with the aspirations, objectives, and the initiatives. And then, as I previously stated, to bring to life each of these initiatives, they'll be taken through the committee and through council for further detailed discussion, rather than having detailed discussion on each of them at the point of developing the business plan. As Councillor Farmer set out, it is a 3-year business plan, and so some of these may be year 1, maybe year 2 or year 3, but You know, as part of that, that'll be set out quite early on.
So it needs, basically, it just needs to be made clear so all councils understand, what they probably will do, that it's a living document, this isn't cast in stone, it's something that's going to evolve.
One quick question. Having said that, is it in the forward planner? The business plan?
Yes, so essentially the business plan will go through to Community Services Committee next week, and it then goes through to Council at the end of September. Council will take a view on it. The plan is then, as per the previous timetable, is to come back potentially to this committee again for another run through. I mean, of course, if Council gets to the stage in the end of September that it's broadly happy with it, then you know there's potentially no need to bring it back to committee if there's nothing further that councillors wish to talk about on it. But you know, the idea is that it's available. We've started it early, so it's available for any committee leading up to the end of January.
You said 3 years, is it not 4?
It's full, yeah.
4. It's year 2021, 2022, 23. It's 4 years. Yeah.
So, Chair, as written at the moment, it's a 3-year plan. It's 20 to 21, 21 to 22, 22 to 23.
Why not 4?
That's for council to decide.
Yeah, we did it last time where we did the last year of the business plan was the first year of the new council. If you wished, we could do that again.
This month's co-terminus with this.
With this council, yeah. The problem with doing that is that the new council then starts without a business plan, and in effect it's just running on from the last one. We could decide to make it another year and maybe be a bit more ambitious.
You could roll it over to 1 more year, could you not?
Sorry?
After 2022, you could roll it over to 1 more year?
Could do.
Yeah. Not for tonight's decision, but I just thought there's a 3-year disparity with the sinking in with the the council election times.
So my suggestion, Chair, is that's a question for council in September.
I think bring that up at council.
Yeah. Remind me.
Yeah, I can add it into the report, Chair, for discussion.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else that you'd like to? Is there anything big that's been missed as far as I'm looking to? Okay. The recommendations are just to note it. I think have we noted?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So we move on to agenda item 7.5, the Merit Award, which you will find on pages 31 to 34. So first of all, any questions of understanding on this? Any issues with any of it? Comments?
Just standard procedures and how we normally do it. And the mayor, deputy mayor, and the who's the other person, past mayor, are the people who have the final say. But when it comes to committee, we have a final say. Full council has a final say.
The reason for the town mayor, the deputy town mayor, and the past town mayor doing it is they are normally the councillors who have the biggest knowledge of what's actually going on in the town, because they've spent a year going out to lots and lots of events and every group in the town. So they meet lots of people, they know what's happening and they know what everybody's doing.
That's been the awards and presented at the annual town meeting, aren't they?
Yes.
We normally have probably up to 3.
Yes. And anybody can put forward anyone they like and then it's voted for at council.
But we're following the fighting done now, the starting now. Does this also go to community services? The same?
No, it's us that do this.
Just us, isn't it?
We'll send that to all councillors.
How community service committee members know what's... It will go out.
It will go out.
Right.
Anything else? No? Okay, thank you. The recommendations are 2.1.1, a working party comprising the town mayor, deputy town mayor, past town mayor be set up to consider nominations received from members under the current criteria. Any, can I have a show of hands? 2.1.2, nominations are put forward to the working party for the award by Friday the 15th of November. extra funds on that. And the working party determining the awards report to council on 27th of January 2020. This being the case, it would be necessary for the working party to meet the week commencing Monday the 6th of January 2020. Any comments? Right. Moving on to agenda item 7.6, which you will find on pages 35 to 36. Plastic-free Harpenden. First of all, any comments or queries on this?
Any comments on?
Comments on agenda item 7.6, which is plastic-free Harpenden.
Yes, there's a couple of things I would like to comment on. This is from the Plastic-Free Harpenden status. It started as a Facebook group, turned into meetings. The aim of it would be having Harpenden as a plastic-free community as defined, I think, by the Surface for Sewage group, but I'm not really sure. And it would involve council to lead by example and remove single-use plastic and this, that and the other. Now, that's great. I think it's a fantastic initiative that's been going on. There are, however, a couple of other initiatives in the district going on, and I think I would like to make sure that we bring those together and do as much as you can. I mean, I think I would be very firmly behind anything that's going on as part of this. I want to make it a success. And I would like us as a town to get the official plastic-free status that Surface for Sewage, the organisation, have defined that. So I think it's great.
I think I could be helpful there because I proposed the plastic-free initiative at District, and I received a report on it as part of a scrutiny committee last week. We are actually ahead of District in our work on plastic-free. District is not going at the moment for a plastic-free award or a plastic-free status for St Albans. They are mainly focusing on things that they can control, which is plastic in the town council and things they control like the charter market. I, at that scrutiny committee, asked them to look wider, asked them to consider involving a wider range of people from the community and what they were doing, and asked them to consider going for plastic-free status in St Albans. None of the other, as far as I know, none of the other parish councils have done any work on this. I think it might be useful at this stage to congratulate the town clerk on the work that's been done so far. Over a period of 2 months, a huge amount of work's been done, and I think you've taken plastic out of the town council and moving fairly rapidly to take it from those things which are under our control. There are provisos there. You have to give traders time because they have invested in lots of plastic bags, etc. You can't say you can't use them anymore. They have to have time to run through their stock.
Thank you. I related to that point because it was obviously in the bold about removing single-use plastics from its premises, and you've given me more detail than that's on there. So it sounds like you're going down the road, which I was going to suggest which should be in there, that all events that you support. So, for example, the farmers market, the circus you support by allowing them to rent there, you would also insist on no single-use plastic there. Is that the case?
So I think, Chair, our aspiration is to get to that place. I think we also need to recognise that there's not a quick solution to doing that. In many respects, in lots of places, it's not been possible. Lots of areas around the country that have tried to do it with events. We've certainly got a strong aspiration to make it happen, and we'll be developing plans and an action plan that we could bring it in over a period of time, essentially. So, it'd be wrong of me to say that, in 6 months' time we've made our event, our next summer carnival, Christmas carnival, single-use plastic-free. It's certainly something that we're going to work towards and bring an action plan to committee to approve and to agree.
Would you though look to reward traders who could offer you a plastic-free situation?
In what way, councillor?
Well, if you take the market and you put out, for tender, the next use of it, say, we are looking, when you're looking at their response, whether they would be able to deliver a plastic-free solution and reward them. I mean by simply saying that they may not pay the highest fee if they are the ones offering the best outcome for plastics. That's what I mean by incentivisation.
Yeah, Chair. So some of the places that are doing it are looking at incentivising in that way. It's one of the options that we would put forward to committee and to council when considering the action plan. But it's certainly something that has been put forward in some places. I must say, from my initial research, some places it's worked, some places it hasn't, and you've just created a different issue with traders. But certainly it's an option that we should put forward as part of any
And it
exploratory
has
work.
to be remembered that if we do that, we have to offset it with increases in the precept.
Yeah, I agree. My point is that a lot of organisations, even political parties, talk about green issues and they say they're very committed to them, but they'll never actually make the trade-off. They tell people there is no trade-off, we are all committed to green, and there is a trade-off, there always is, there's a higher cost. That's why the traders use single-use plastic, because they're business people, and therefore it is the best economic outcome for them right now. Now, clearly that's recognised by governments over time, by sort of taxes on various things, and refundable bottles and all that stuff, but our only opportunity is in our commercial activities with those people. So I'm just encouraging it and saying that, yes, there would be a trade-off, and I would be very happy to explain to the voters in my ward why they're paying more on their precept, because there's maybe been a reduction in income from commercial income, if I can say it's for that reason.
Councillor, we have it in our gift to tell them that they can't use single-use plastic.
I understand that, and what I'm saying is, in a tender process where you might have, for example, just take the circus, it's simple, it's one. Somebody wants to use that land at a certain time. If there's more than one person, and you've got as a simple tender process, you'll say one of the things you're looking for in your evaluation of those contracts is their ability to deliver on our plastics-free initiative.
But we could also set a tender that says we're not allowed to use single-use plastic.
And we could, and then there might be, accept that, and then there's a risk that we don't get the business at all, and that's something we need to consider. But I think you are. So I'm not suggesting you're not doing this. I'm just saying I endorse it, and as a councillor who might have to vote for the consequences of that, and defend the consequences, which it might cost more than maybe loss of income, I would be prepared to do that. So I would encourage that.
And I may say that district, I think if you look at their plan, they have not bitten the bullet on the charter market for single-use plastic, and single-use plastic is still being used.
Just to add one thing, Chair, is that where we've started to research on this, we're going to bring an action plan through committee, and the key thing is we learn from other places, particularly more further afield, where things have gone well, but also where perhaps there's been some unintended consequences of these things. And so it would be kind of our duty as officers when putting forward the action plan is to put forward the good ideas, but also set out what the risks are. And that could be financial, it could be public perception, it could be all sorts of different things as you would normally expect. So we will do that as part of it.
I'll give you an example. I spoke with one of our traders, who's the fruit and vegetables. He said he uses single-use plastics because paper is considerably more expensive per item. And he would like to move to paper, but the cost differential. And one of the things I discussed with him was moving and putting through the cost on his product. And he said that he was very loath to do that because he felt that that would seriously impact his trade. So one of the things we could maybe do is encourage him to try it out, to see in a kind of to just see how sensitive people are to small increases in price to cover the use of paper rather than plastic.
Yes, it's probably not absolutely direct to the recommendation, but I noticed that its really recommendation is that so we lead by example to move towards becoming plastic-free status. However, I do note it, I'm sure this is set out somewhere, but I don't know where it is. It's one of the objectives that is need to be met in order to secure the status. So I'm just wondering if somebody somewhere could let them know what the other objectives are.
You need, sorry.
There are, to achieve plastic-free status, there's a whole list of things. If you would like, councillor will circulate that too.
Yes.
And it is the Suffers Against Sewage
Yes.
group. And a lot of them actually reflect that they are
Yes.
Suffers Against Sewage and are not
Very
particularly
virtuous
applicable.
recycler and avoid single-use plastic, but I'd like to know, yes, if you could
They
circulate
are,
that to
they
me,
are
I'd
things,
be
they are
interested.
things like traders. They have a proportion of traders in the town change their use of plastic in 3 ways.
Yeah.
And so that's the
I
criteria.
don't know the details now, but I just want to know where I can find out what all the objectives are.
Suffers
Thank
Against
you.
Sewage, look up plastic-free Suffers Against Sewage and you'll find it. Councillor, you were next. Were you
No,
next?
it's fine. I was just going to...
More point of information for myself, Chairman.
Would you like it just sent round?
Yes.
Okay, could you...
Yeah, I've made a note of that,
thank
Chair.
you.
Something that comes to mind, for example, there's the beer festival. I think it's later this autumn, isn't it? The beer
Yeah.
festival is held behind Longdeer, isn't it?
Endorse me.
That's all plastic glasses. Now, is there a planning permission required for that beer festival, or can it just take place? So there's no way one can somewhere or other have any conditions
No, you have
on.
a word with them.
Yeah.
I've spoken with people about this. Do you want information on this? There's a big debate on this. If you have events, there's 2 issues. One is if you use plastic, if you collect it afterwards, you can then recycle it, and so it doesn't become single use. But the problem with that is that people put things like food, on plastic plates. They contaminate the plate. If they put that into a bin, a contaminated plate into a bin, the entire bin is then contaminated and it goes to waste. It goes to general waste. They can't recycle it. And so, if you had plastic plates, you'd have to have a paper cover to keep the food on so the plate didn't become contaminated. More importantly, with things like plastic cups, it's the same issue, but you also have a huge problem of people throwing anything in the plastic bin. So they just see a bin and they toss anything in it. Once somebody's tossed a half-eaten hamburger in, that's it. The whole thing's gone. What they're doing at one of the events, the Sustainability St Albans people have offered to, they're going to put a lot of bins out. They're going to recycle the plastic, and people are going to stand by the bins, manning the bins, and ask people to give them the rubbish so they can put it into the appropriate bin to make sure that the plastic is recyclable. And that's literally, that is what you were alluding to, I think, Mr. Jeeves.
Yeah.
And that is the issue with it. You're wasting your time unless people behave, and on the whole they don't. So you have to have a process in place to make sure that what goes in is right.
Hopefully the final question, are we in alliance with these group of residents, or we don't groups doing the same thing, do we?
No, there is a group of residents. There's about 9 or 10 of them.
Are they talking to us?
They're talking to us on an
Okay.
ongoing basis. There is a meeting scheduled for later. They have divided into subgroups. Each subgroup is looking at a different issue. One subgroup is looking at traders in the town, and they're going around the traders and encouraging them telling them what's involved in becoming plastic free and encouraging them to do that. Another subgroup is looking at schools, and is talking to the schools and encouraging them. Another one is looking at the supermarkets. That subgroup has already visited an initiative in Oxford that Waitrose is doing to have no plastic-free packaging at all. And they came back very enthused by what was happening. And they are talking to the Waitrose managing here, asking for it to be extended here. In the meantime, both Waitrose and Sainsbury have now got a programme where if you go to their cheese counter or their meat or their fish counters and take your own containers, they will put it into. So you can the deli, the fish, the meat, etc. You can have things put in your own container and take it away. The fish stall on the concourse, which is there, well, it's not the concourse, it's outside the library, which is there on a Tuesday, they're running the same thing. If you take your own container, they will put the fish into it. Increasingly, the plastic-free people are trying to encourage all retailers on the town to do that. One or two of the cafes who sell cakes and things, they're beginning to do that as well. So it's spreading, but this is very much bottom-up people-generated initiative, and there's a lot of people who are out there working very hard on this.
Two quick fire questions. Are we getting an update at a future date on how things are going?
I think so, yes.
So, Chair, yeah, what sits behind this, as I mentioned, will be an action plan that will be brought to the appropriate committee,
Okay.
as part of the next business plan, essentially, because as you were seeing in the business plan item, it's a key priority within that.
The other thing is, does the Northern District Council know what we're doing? Are we trying to do a whole, to include?
No, they're
not
only
duplicating,
they're
are
only looking at St Albans. They know we're doing.
Only St Albans, okay. Right.
The other initiative which could impact is the carbon-free initiative. That was supposed to, in St Albans, that was supposed to start with a working group. As far as I know, nothing has happened. Extinction Rebellion came in. It's about it's about balancing carbon use.
Offsetting or whatever.
It's balancing it. It's reducing your use, your activities which generate carbon, and boosting the activities which take carbon out. And the activities which take carbon out are actually green things, trees, planting trees.
Have they not approached us on any district?
Well, I don't think they've gone anywhere with it yet. So
It's purely district.
I've asked.
They came to
several
a
times.
meeting, didn't they, at St Albans? And I
Yeah.
assume they came to purpose the whole district.
Yeah.
So in a way, we're tied into the district. Aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, there are certain things they could do, but they need to start by setting up their committee to kick it off, and they haven't.
Chair, we approved that at the first council meeting in St Albans.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, no, I don't know what they've been doing over the summer. But the officers took forward the plastic-free initiative, which was good.
Okay. I'm happy.
Okay. Right.
Sorry, may I ask, is it possible to get some fresh air into the room? I'm
Yeah.
suffering.
Very
Certainly.
hot. Is it too hot? I know. Now you know how I feel when it's cold.
You must be more than here even I'm
Are you cold? Oh.
There must be more.
I'm usually not too
We'll start with the air conditioning. That'll be the quickest, I would have thought.
Yeah.
It's too noisy or too cold.
Okay,
Thank
there is a policy commitment here that we will support plans to establish Harpenden as a plastic-free community and will work in partnership to encourage plastic-free initiatives and campaigns. The Town Council will lead by example and work towards removing single-use plastic items from its city. Can I have a show of hands with you with me? No. Thank you. Item 7.7, review of your MAC reserve. Any questions? No? Issues, comments, queries? No? Okay. I can move then to the recommendations. Can I ask you to approve the earmarked reserves policy at Appendix A? I shall show of hands, please. Approve the reallocation of earmarked reserves as set out in the statement Appendix C. Approve the release of £13,000 of earmarked reserves for election costs as set out in paragraph 3.7 and 3.8. Thank you. We'll move on then to agenda item 7.8, which you will find on pages 43 to 46, and it's the Town Hall and Park Hall improvements, where we're asked to release £47,650 from earmarked reserves to take forward the office reconfiguration project, which has had some skills in selection for. Would you like to say a few words about that first, and then ask questions?
Yeah, certainly, Chair. So the first part of this report, where you're asked to note the improvements that we've made previously, the reason why we're bringing this to you is because, as per your terms of reference, we have pretty much in your first two meetings covered everything else off, where we've given you some context to it. So the reason for having the first part of the report is just to give you sight of the sorts of things that we've made to the town hall, the improvements we've made to the town hall over several years. Broadly, two parts, some that are essential repairs and maintenance, others are more improvements, particularly where we've tried to make it more attractive for hirers. Things like introducing Wi-Fi into parkour, regularly replacing flooring, improving chairs, all the sorts of things that make it an attractive space to hire. So that's the first part. The second part is in relation to what I would see as an essential office reconfiguration project to ensure that the working environment downstairs is as good as it can be, and it also deals with some of the real issues that we've got at the moment around the working environment, which is set out in a table underneath paragraph 4.3. So I don't think there's much else I can say at this stage, Chair, that's not already in the report.
Thank you. Any comments? Questions?
You do say up to 50,000. Yeah, we are releasing a specific figure of 760, which seems to have cost enough. No?
In the previous report, we looked at sort of reconfiguring the earmarked reserves, and in doing that, we put together £47,650 for animal improvements. So we're going to take that from reserves and then work within that figure as far as we can.
So you said it's out of general reserve.
We probably will have to, yeah. We've got some maintenance budgets that we can dip into.
Just a practical one, and I agree this work needs to be extremely good to see downstairs. It's the layout really, that's very important. Presumably you've got a plan to manage it, there will be a level of disruption presumably to staff, and presumably there's nothing planned in place to deal with that.
Yeah, so Chair, we're at the scoping stage. A key part of the next step is committee approval tonight, of course. But as part of our scoping, we're trying to understand what the impact would be in terms of the operation. So what we do think that if we were to bring someone external in to manage the whole project, they're probably going to want the building for a period of 3 weeks. Using our own kind of project management expertise, we think we can limit the disruption to perhaps 7 working days where the office downstairs is out of action. We would deal with that by a number of different ways. We've got potential to use space up here, the office next door, various kind of remote working opportunities to mean that there's actually no disruption to the ability for staff to be able to work. Two key parts of the project, the data relocation and the electrical infrastructure, we're treating those as enabling projects, so they'll be done way in advance of anything else, probably over a weekend, so that you leave on a Friday, well I won't, I'll be over the weekend, but generally staff will leave on a Friday and come back in on Monday and it will all be done and there'll be no disruption. So that later down the line, when we're decorating new flooring, new furniture, that can be done in a real short block. So disruption, probably up to 7 working days. I would love to get that shorter, but it's got to be really...
It's inevitable, but I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
But I think we'd like to know, that there is a plan, obviously a plan in place to manage it.
Any other questions? There was, and I was actually considering this, to tell about the numbers that were, the numbers of staff being increased. And I did ask that question, and I'm around 16 staff currently, 15 or 16.
So we've got 17 staff, Chair. We've got 13 of them need a permanent desk. There's 12 downstairs at the moment, which means I'm upstairs, which is okay in some sense, but it means I've got the ability to work amongst the team, which is important. 2 of the additional 4 are out and about, they're grounds maintenance team, but they also do need access to PC. And as previously agreed by the council, we've got an event support officer coming in soon. So at that point, we'll need 13 permanent desks downstairs, and we've only got 12. So there's a very real need for it soon.
I presume, Chairman, also when the auditors come, don't they need desk space as well, when the numbers are audited?
Yeah, that's true, Chair. So we need space. We do utilise space up here, but it's if we have visitors or we often take on work experience students. So we are kind of well over capacity at the moment, I would suggest. So this creates more capacity, not just for the current setup, but also for the future of Town Council as well. By reconfiguring the electrical infrastructure, we are kind of set up for the future that we won't have to do that again. Considering it was last done in 2001, I think. It's not fit for purpose.
Can I ask the obvious question? This is not a listed building. Can we do downstairs what we like without planning permission?
Yes.
Not planning how, we can.
So, Chair, depending on what we do demolition-wise, there may be building regulations that are relevant. However, there's minimal changes downstairs.
I'll be saying that off the top of my head, so nobody asked.
No, that's yeah.
I would like to think I hadn't done buildings.
No, it's internal changes, Chair. So.
Okay. Right. The recommendation, and we'll move to that. If you look at recommendation 2.1.1, we note the improvements made to the Town Hall and Park Hall buildings are set in paragraph 3.5 to 3.6. Can I have a show of hands, please? And secondly, approve the release of 47,650 of earmarked reserves to take forward the office reconfiguration project set out in section 4. A show of hands, please. Thank you. Agenda item 7.9. These is the recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 31st of July, which was held to approve the risk management strategy of the Health Committee policy. Do I have any questions?
Maybe our chair, isn't it? Was this first meeting? I'm sure.
Chair, are we just looking at the memorandum now, or are we looking at the actual response strategy?
It's a strategy and the policy. The actual risk register is like that.
Yeah.
It's a big thick document. If you want it, you're welcome to have it. If you want to go on the committee,
I believe it's on the website anyway. That's at my leisure. I do have a point on the response strategy, if I may. A comment, I have read it because I do this sort of thing in my day job and I think it reads very well, so thank you very much. It is a standard approach, but it's actually well written. What I would suggest for future years is that clearly this is different from the previous year, as I've seen the previous year, otherwise it would need to be.
The expenditure hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed.
It's changed. It has to be presented every year.
Okay.
The whole thing has to be agreed every year.
What I was going to say, that there were changes, was to change the red line, but that's academic propriety.
There were.
Okay, fine, thank you.
I think what happens, Councillor, is that as we go on, we identify more sorts of risks that weren't an issue in the past.
So the risk register changes clearly because that's the
Oh, that changes.
And it's a bit slightly odd to prove this is not approve the risk register because this is just a framework, however good. And what really matters is the risk register. Would I be right to think that was approved at the meeting in January before I became a member?
Yes, it was January, yes.
That's the time to do that.
Yeah, and that will then be approved, that you will get the risk register and that's approved at the next agenda.
Good.
That's for sure.
Sorry if I may, just a presentational point. When we get into the health and safety organisational chart, on page 67, looking on screen, it's great, it's reasonable. When it's printed black and white, it's not readable. And then, if you struggle to print it in colour, But maybe when these things are put together, the colours shows a bit of usage or black and white. Yeah, I mean, that's taking redaction to image 3D.
Was it online?
I think it was.
Any other questions?
It's more a comment looking at these health and safety actually. I noticed, for instance, on page 71, when 1.3 drug and alcohol abuse, obviously anybody found taking alcohol and drugs on the premises, guilty of gross misconduct accordingly. Just for consistency, I would have thought that as well failure to act under 1.12 with drivers, for instance, if they have a ban, I would have thought that would be the same issue, would it not? I mean, if you're banned and you drive, I don't know, I'm just asking the question, would you, for consistency,
I think there is a...
I don't know if there's a legal difference, but I'm just wondering, because
If
driving, the logic would seem to me that if it's disciplinary that you don't, I know, I can see
It's
that,
only if
but
you
would
drive
it
as
be
part of your job. I mean, I went through this recently somewhere else. If you drive as part of your job and you lose your licence, then your conditions for getting the job are that you have a licence. So if you lose it because of whatever reason you've lost your license, it could be driving too fast, it could be whatever, you lose your job because it's one of the criteria for having it. However, if it's just a member of staff and they lose their licence and they do not drive as part of their job, that's not the same thing at all. They would have to find another way to come in.
I think you would then just be committing a criminal offence, which would then lead to disciplinary that way. So I think it would be
there is a slight, there is a,
Yeah.
yes, I grasp.
Yeah, so you don't need to
I'm
capture
just wondering.
Is speeding a criminal offence?
Not in it.
No, driving without a licence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think speeding is.
No, you just get points on the
Yeah, I have a point related to this. It's just, I'm not quite sure what was available online or not, but you are requiring that your drivers to sign a disclosure confirming they have a clean driving licence. The signing a disclosure, the sort of people who might not have a clean driving licence are unlikely to disclose it. Now, I don't know what position that puts you in, whether you, as a matter of your risk protection, need to, at some stages, check either randomly or all of the drivers at some point where they I appreciate you can't do that every day, but it seems to me, actually, just in this one example, probably just the way it's phrased, making people believe they've got something safe when they haven't actually, because you're not able to monitor it. I see you.
We have done checks with the online system.
Could that be, I just think maybe that should be put in, that you require a licensed driver to sign, and as part of it, you monitor independently the state of those licenses.
Yeah, Chair, I'm just having listened to the discussion here and having had a further read of this, I do actually think there's some things that need clarifying that I may suggest you might not wish to agree, certainly the health and safety policy this time. So the couple of things that spring to mind, one is the reference to the alcohol and drug abuse. At the moment, 1.3 on page 71 says, anyone found taking alcohol or drugs on the premises is guilty of gross misconduct. Actually, what that should say, because there is a disciplinary process in place, we are prejudging any outcome of that disciplinary process. So there may be more references to that. So that should say, could be considered as committing gross misconduct and will be taken through the disciplinary process accordingly. So I would quite like to revisit some of these. And also, just on the driving at work point, I would question the legality, potentially, of requiring a clean driving licence in council business. I think that's quite an old school
You don't,
clause.
if your job does not involve driving, it's none of the council's business.
So the issue with that now is particularly in relation to insurance. So if you are driving to a meeting, say in St Albans, you are deemed to be on council business. Therefore, I think there is, and you may only be driving your own vehicle, you're still on council business. So I would like to just look into that slightly more, because I think we might be overly restrictive and in fact trying to enforce something that is not enforceable.
You say valid. You have also a valid driving license.
It's valid
You've got to be legally allowed to drive.
Because the other point I would make is that the only way, if someone was to lose their licence, the only way in which that would impact on their job is if it's set out in their contract. So I can confirm there's nobody in the employment at the moment, that the town council, that has that in their contract, that they're required to have a driving licence.
What about the ground crew?
No, because they can still make alternative means around town, so it's not within their contract. So, Chair, I appreciate this is might be a bit frustrating, but I wonder whether I could just have the opportunity to revisit this and bring it back to the next meeting.
Could I suggest that you do, and you highlight the areas that have changed, so just look at them at the next meeting, if that's what's the council? Yeah? Right, can we take a vote on that, but just come back, it will only look at the areas highlighted and changed, and the rest are approved. Yep. Okay. Have we finished on this, council? Can we move on? Anybody like to make any more comments? No? Okay, we'll move on to 7.10. Right, page 91. This is the Community Grant Fund application and monitoring, and we have a new application and some information on grants which have already been given. Our grants are around £500, so they are reasonable for years. So, can I ask if there's any questions on this item?
Just one comment. I mean, I don't know the Cambridge, I can't remember, to be absolutely honest, but I know a cathedral to where they could showcase and have performances with families and people to mention joining in, and actually it was very effective and people enjoyed it. So I certainly support it. I would just say, being a bit nitpicky about the Matthew's Care Home in Redmore.
Yes, sir. And Ashland's Care Home, where's that? I've no idea. I don't think that's in Halfmoon Island.
I think it's a good idea, but I think we want to make sure, bearing in mind that I don't think either it's in Halfmoon, I think just to make sure that that clear that the grant is to be used for providing these services within Halfmoon.
Okay, right, we have two ways of doing this, and we either do not grant it tonight, ask them to come back with a commitment, or we grant it with a proviso that it's only done in towards working in Halfmoon. Which one would you prefer, one or two? One?
Two.
Two. Yes, I'm happy with that, but I think we just need to make sure that it's that it's used for the benefit of our. If we're giving the grant, we want to be sure it's for the benefit of our residents.
Just make the obvious point. You said 500, but it's £500 a camper 250.
The Campus 250. They've asked for 500.
Sure, but probably 500.
Yeah. People know that, so they ask. Okay. If we move on to 212, which is the monitoring information and feedback from previously awarded grants to young enterprises in the future. Any comments or queries on those, councillors?
Which page are we on?
Sorry?
Chair, which page are we on, please?
We're up to page 92.
I've just got a question about that reference. New academic year starts in 2019. 2 schools now will take part. Is that indicating, therefore, that we made a provision in our budget of £1,000 for this?
I think it's only 500.
So now there's 2, they get half. It's a £500 grant, and the number, depending how many schools go, it gets divided amongst them.
Any other questions? No? Well then, if we move on then to the recommendations, item 2.1.1, we approve the grant application for £500 to forget-me-not musicians and detailed the paragraph 31235 and appendix A with the proviso that they indicate to us that the money will be used for performances and afternoons. Yeah? And we will leave that to officers to monitor that happens. And item 2.1.2, note the monitoring information and feedback received on the grants previously awarded to Young Enterprise, Sustainable St Albans and Teach Us to provide the appendices B, C, D and E. Can I ask for your agreement to both of those? Right, thank you. And I think that's it. So I will call the meeting closed at 9:15. Thank you, colleagues.